Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hi, welcome to the Thursday edition Sidelines, www.sidelines.live. Also radio, podcast. That's what we do 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. Check us out live. If you miss us, you can go to our website after the show, or you can go to 680thefan.com, the podcast park over in Atlanta, and Kicks 96.3, Alexander City, Lake Martin, Alabama, part of the Radio Alabama group. Proud to be on all these with our great sponsors. Also, great listeners and viewers. Follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. All right. Got a great show today. Got Johnny Ballpark Franks ready to lead us off in the leadoff position. Frank Duffy's going to check in over in Atlanta and join in with us. In the second hour, we've got the AD angle. Matt Dean over at Rhodes College in Memphis, 31 years college athletics administration. John Hartwell, most recently the AD at Utah State University. We get into some really cool stuff in that second hour, the big picture of college athletics. And I got to tell you, man, I was at the Liberty Bowl game. That was awesome. And it was, had there not been all these concerns, the game wouldn't be played because of water and water mains bursting in Memphis with the freeze of last weekend. I mean, it was almost packed. That was the biggest crowd I've seen in a bowl game anywhere in college football up to this point. And the fans were ecstatic. So that's great. College football needs this. We got this NIL and the portal. All I can tell you, Johnny Ballpark Franks and Frank Duffy, I bring them on in. After the game, Sam Pittman was out there at the 50-yard line with our friend Harold Grader accepting the trophy for the Liberty Bowl. And he said, I'm not concerned about who wasn't here tonight. I'm concerned about the players that were here. That's all that matters to us. And these guys wanted to play this game, and they wanted to win. Sam Pittman just fired a shot over the bow.
Yep.
He just fired a shot over the bow and said, if you don't want to be here, then get the hell out of here. We don't want you. I mean, this portal stuff, all these people will say, well, they should have the right to do whatever they want. Well, you know what? How about we start doing that with marriage? I don't like my wife this week. She cooked a bad meal, or she made me mad, or she's watching too much Netflix. I'm going to go get me another wife. I'm in the portal. I mean, this is just, folks, you can tell me all you want. Oh, that's just the way it is now. It's just these kids today. You know whose fault it is? It's the adults for allowing it to happen. College football and the free market are gonna save it. I'm telling you, in the financial services industry in the late 90s, they were trying to say nobody needed a financial advisor. You could throw darts against the wall and pick stocks and make money. Maybe you could to some extent. But by God, March of 2000 came along and the NASDAQ imploded. The markets blew up. And I think people realized it's all about customer behavior. And a good sound mind is very important. Johnny Ballpark Franks jumping here with us right now up in Nashville. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Awesome time of year. I'm on a roll. I'm an old man out in the front yard like Frank Duffy yelling at the clouds. Ah!
Well, here's the problem. There used to be the argument, especially when the signing period was February. Now the signing period is the Wednesday before Christmas. I mean, yes, there's a late signing period in February, but 70+% of these high school students are making their decisions, these junior college players making their decisions that Wednesday before Christmas. And so they know before they sign and, they make their commitment and they sign, they know that their head coach is either left or going to be there at least for 1 year. So you can't use that argument anymore. However, these student athletes are employees. Let's just throw it out there. The student athletes are now employees of the university. And so if you're going to make them sit out a year, then you should make the coaches who leave their programs and go somewhere else to sit out a year. Now, if they're fired, different story. But if they take a job somewhere else, if you're saying that the student athletes have to wait a year, then these coaches who leave these universities to take another job, a Deion Sanders or whoever you want to throw out there, then they should sit out too. I mean, I like the old way. I like having to sit out a year. I like the fact that there should have been a reasonable amount of money out there for the student athletes. When I got into college athletics back in the 80s, this was a topic of conversation then. Instead, what happened, everybody started taking in the money, the March Madness money especially. This is before football became such a huge money cow as far as the TV revenue and everything else. So this was a conversation because a basketball player couldn't even take his girlfriend out for a pizza. Poorest students on the campus, and these university presidents, these conference commissioners, everybody ignored that for decades. And then the decision was taken out of their hands, and now it's too late to do anything about that. And I think it's almost too late to do anything about the transfer portal as well.
That was a pivotal part, Ballpark. Yeah. You're exactly right. And Merry New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year, buddy.
That was right when SMU, right before they became the Pony Express, and that was like the breaking point. And now you've got this floodgate of money. You've got this floodgate of transfers. The genie is out of the bottle. But I will tell you, I loved that game last night. I watched almost all of that Liberty Bowl. And who won last night was college football. Kids that do it the right way. Programs that do it the right way. You know, Sam Pittman saying, "This is my team." I'm not talking about who wasn't there. I'm talking about who was there. Lance Leipold, that was a perfect showcase for college football on a perfect setting, you know, showcasing America. I don't think it could get as good as it did last night. That was such a great display of college football. It was incredible. I thought it was a wonderful. Congratulations to our friends at the Liberty Bowl. Yeah. What a fantastic night to celebrate college football. Everything was right about that game.
Yeah,
I like this, and I love history, and because I can use history to even tell stories today. Go back to 1977. Now, if you're an Alabama fan, you didn't like the decision, but remember when Lou Holtz, who I'm not a fan of, but Lou Holtz, the head coach of Arkansas in 1977, prior to their game against Oklahoma, and it was important because Oklahoma was number 2 in the country. Yeah. It impacted Alabama. It impacted Notre Dame. He suspended 3 important players of his team. Everybody thought that Arkansas had no chance whatsoever against Oklahoma because of that. And guess what Arkansas did? They thumped Oklahoma 31-6 in that Orange Bowl.
Beat the hell out of them.
Yeah. And so to me, it was just like these players deciding not to, participate in the bowl game for Arkansas. I'm like you guys. I mean, for all these players who want to opt out, look, there's so many players will never have the opportunity at the college level to play in the NFL. That's the conversation. That's where all the players are. For all the Alabamas and Ohio States and Georgias of the world, with players opting out, either transferring away or opting out not to play because of a bowl game. Thank goodness for Alabama, Bryce Young, Will Anderson Jr. will be there on the field this weekend. Yeah. But, to me, that sets an example. It's like, don't be making decisions if you're a head coach about whether or not to suspend players. Concentrate on the players who are on the field for you.
Yeah, well, this is exactly, Frank said it, and I was texting with Frank last night, a bunch of us during the game, and I was texting our friend Harold Grader, Executive VP of the AutoZone Liberty Bowl.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, and Harold, we're getting an echo from somebody, but Harold was so excited. He was right in front of me. I had great seats on the 50-yard line and row 39. Then I moved over from the Arkansas side to the Kansas side with some friends. One of my sons was there and his friend and Boyd, a bunch of people. And we were all, pulling for Arkansas. But the Kansas people, they were so excited to be there. And, and it was pretty much the Liberty Bowl was about packed. I mean, and I know there was a lot of concerns about water and stuff. They had over 500 porta-johns. They did the right thing. They were prepared for everything, and I give a thumbs up to Steve.
Yes, it was a great television production. It could not have looked better. I'm telling you. That comeback was incredible.
Yeah.
And the excitement of 3 overtimes.
Yeah, the Arkansas fans are not happy about that, but they're happy they won. But I loved it. Y'all are right. We're getting an echo. Okay, when Sam Pittman went out there to midfield to accept that trophy, I just loved it when he said, all this stuff about who's not here. I'm focusing on who was here. And these guys wanted to play. They wanted to play this game. They wanted to win this game. You think that game didn't matter? I was right down about almost on the field, watching guys diving for loose balls and tackles. And and that quarterback, Daniels for Kansas. Wow. Guys, is he Lamar Jackson Jr.? This is what college football needs. And you know what? Enough of these little hissy fits, Johnny, that these guys throw when they don't get in the right bowl. I'm going to tell you something. When I had my first kid, I was, I want a boy. I'll take him hunting all the time. Found out it was going to be a girl. I was like, man, when you get in that delivery room and that baby's coming out, you give me 10 fingers, 10 toes, and a heartbeat. Sir. I don't care what it is. It's college football, man. This is what we needed so badly. And these bowl games do matter. You can say they don't. They do. And if these big teams don't want to go, Billy Roberts brought it up yesterday, and Dudley Dawson and our good friend Dr. Waller made a point, Johnny and Frank. Let the smaller schools come. I guarantee you they'd show up. This would be the biggest deal in the world to them, to be treated like kings for a week. But college football, it's the greatest game ever. And you know what? Try doing this in your personal life. Quitting every time something doesn't go your way. You will be on the street with a sign that says, "We'll work for food."
Hey, you tell Jalen Daniels it's not important when the kid tried to stretch out to make that 2-point conversion where the targeting was. Yeah. You tell him it's not important when he's leaning out and getting crushed by 3 Arkansas, defenders. Don't tell me that wasn't important. Absolutely not.
Yeah. Johnny Ballpark Franks, let's go.
Well, that's a tough thing too. That's like, I try to pick every game, and I've been doing this since 2008 when I started my sports talk show career. I pick all the bowl games against the spread, and it's getting tougher and tougher, especially for those games before Christmas. Who really wants to be there? And look, it's just like we were having this conversation yesterday with Alabama's situation taking on Kansas State, for example, in the Sugar Bowl. Is this going to be an Alabama team looking to send a message, or is it going to be like Alabama in 2008 against Utah or 2013 against Oklahoma? Teams that thought they had opportunities to play for a national championship, they didn't, and then laid major eggs in the Sugar Bowl of all places. So but I go back to Saturday, December 17th in that Las Vegas Bowl. Oregon State wanted to be there, and with that, they got their 10th win of the season. Did the Florida Gators look like they wanted to be anywhere near that football field that afternoon against Oregon State? Absolutely not.
Yeah. Hey, if I'm Billy Napier, I'm not sure how many of these guys on the Florida team I even allow to come back. Because when you go out and you put forth a piss poor effort like that, you don't need to be wearing that Gator jersey. They got too much. That's too much pride, too much tradition. There's too many guys like Ben Troop, who was on the show with us yesterday. You think that stuff doesn't matter? You're crazy. And Frank, I go back what Nick Saban said, his first team meeting with LSU in 2000, the number one goal to a man in that room raising their hands was, we got to make it to the Sugar Bowl. He goes, and Coach Saban's right. Now we got guys, that this, I'm not going to play. Hey, let me tell you what. That society is football has become a reflection of our society. We've been treading water for damn near 3 years with this virus stuff. We cannot keep doing that. You're not going to get any better by locking your doors and staying inside and being scared. I mean, life is tough enough. If you're dumb and stupid, it's even tougher. And if you're lazy, you don't have a chance. The portal is become what our society has become in a lot of ways, and it's time, way past time, we stop it. Johnny, Frank, whoever wants to dive in and take that one on, it's going to work.
Frank, take this one. Frank, take this one on too, because I was going to say that, all right, think about the players' perspective. Are the players getting the full attention of the coaching staff in those games right before signing day? I remember here's Florida, Oregon State in Las Vegas on December 17th. Wednesday is the signing period. Where is the coaches around the players at this point? The players are, taking care of their final exams, and then they're thinking about Christmas. The coaches aren't thinking about the players taking that football field against Oregon State. Their number one priority is recruiting. And so they feel neglected. And so in all fairness I wasn't there in Gainesville, so I don't know what's going on in Gainesville prior to that game, but I can guarantee you that a lot of the attention, it was not focused on the current players. It was focused on the future players for the Florida Gators.
And Johnny and Rob, even if it is focused on the new players, they're even distracted from coaching their own team because they're having to recruit their own players to keep them from getting in the portal to go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
The recruiting
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because December 5th.
That's what people don't understand. Just because you enter the transfer portal doesn't mean that you're gone forever. I mean, you're just putting your name there because you're forced to, because there's a deadline for you to enter it at that point if you're thinking about transferring out for the next semester. However, just because you're in there doesn't mean you can't come back to the school that you were playing for.
Look at the craziness of Miles Brennan last year. When leaves the team, then decides when Max Johnson goes to Texas A&M, he then comes back. Then when Jaden Daniels comes in, takes the starting. I mean, you see the handwriting on the wall in August. Takes the starting job. He then leaves. I mean, it's like a roller coaster. How in the hell can programs sustain momentum and continuity when you have that? It's crazy.
Frank, hold that thought. Johnny Ballpark Franks, Rob Browne here with you. Sidelines Thursday, college football, basketball blitz. We're going to try to answer those questions. We will after this quick commercial break from Mildred.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection. And they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with Johnny Ballpark Franks, Frank Duffy. And you know what, guys? This college football you talk about, I hate the December signing period because it's also, you talk about what happens. You start firing coaches in the 3rd and 4th, 5th weeks of the season. Look what happened to the two schools that were linked. Their head coach was linked to the Auburn coaching opening. Yeah. Okay. Ole Miss lost 4 of their last 5, now 5 of their last 6. And Liberty, after they got the win over Arkansas, 21-19 on the road up in Fayetteville, once it became clear that Hugh Freeze was in the crosshairs of the Auburn search committee, look what happened to Liberty. I think they lost 2 or 3 in a row at the end of the season. Folks, we had the NCAA did their best imitation of Pontius Pilate possible when they with NIL. They just played kick the can. Yeah. I hate regulation. I don't like government getting involved in anything. They struggle to deliver the mail.
The word Rob was feckless.
Yeah, feckless and spineless
in the entire process.
Yeah, and there's no leadership. And Johnny, you've got a lot of experience in administration and all. I'm not big on rules, but we there's a thing called the chain of command. The coaches can leave, but making them sit out, some of them need to sit out longer than a year from coaching. Maybe they should sit out permanently. Again, I go back to this December signing period. It's a real problem, and it's forcing. And Johnny, y'all are all right. Florida, those guys looked so unprepared. I'm serious. I would have been so mad if I was the head coach at Florida. But then again, if I wasn't preparing the team and my assistants were too busy doing recruiting, I got nobody to blame but myself. But players as competitors should have enough pride every time they step in the field of competition to want to win, Johnny.
They were so bad, Franz and Buddy didn't even say a word about them. That's how bad they were.
Yeah, exactly. And
I was just going to say, I go back to my high school days. My dad died when I was 13. I think I wasn't a kid since the age of 8 because I worked at my parents' grocery store and manned their pool hall next door. So at 8, I'm not making this up, by the way. So when my dad died at 13, I was more or less an adult already in the household. And I easily could have graduated in December of my senior year. If I'd had the opportunity, maybe I would have started my college life before the normal time period where you wait till the fall of the next year. But instead, I didn't. But, who's to tell these kids who want to get their life started, who want to get on a football field in the spring and have an opportunity to compete for a job the upcoming fall? I mean, who's to say that they should not be allowed to go ahead and sign and enroll and be able to participate and play? So, look, there's no good time as far as the signing period. I think it does make sense to have it before Christmas just because of the first semester in January for these kids who want to get an early jump on their college career. But when you think about the calendar year, if you're in college athletics, this was one of those things that's always been debated. And then you throw in the name, image, and likeness too. I mean, I can't imagine, when I'm looking at, say, how a team is doing both in signing period, also the transfer portal. I'm also thinking about, name, image, and likeness money, trying to figure out, okay, what is this team going to look like on the football field? Because, look, I think one of the biggest problems why Alabama is not one of the 4 playoff teams, other than the fact that Bryce Young was injured against Tennessee and against LSU. He couldn't even see the practice field against Tennessee before the Tennessee game. But it's also the money, how it impacts the attitude in those locker rooms. I mean, there's jealousies. And I'm looking and seeing like I'm the workhorse helping to make the superstar. I'm getting nothing in comparison to my $3 million man there. You can't say I'm going to be happy for my teammate. You're basically thinking about, especially when the girlfriend says, how come you don't have this when he has that and you're doing the work? There are going to be jealousies in these locker rooms across the country.
It's why socialism and communism doesn't work.
That's right. And here's another thing. You look at a partnership. Let's say you got 3 guys in a partnership. You pick the business. One of them does 80 or 90% of the heavy lifting, yet the other 2 are recipients, and they really don't do much of anything. Every now and then something falls in their lap. That's not really a partnership. Yeah. A partnership is when 1 and 1 equals 3. And I'm going to tell you, I got an article out of the Wall Street Journal today. That was texted to me by and he said, and the article is about 17% of accountants over the last couple of years have left their jobs. Young accountants, they don't like the long hours and the working. It's tough. Listen, man, America's not going to be the richest country in the world if this doesn't change. It's trickling down everywhere. I mean, I know kids that I've mentored through Auburn, like Thompson Westerberg, who came to Auburn, worked his butt off, got a degree in accounting, 3.75 in the MAC program at Auburn, was a football manager, Sigma Chi. He's up in New York with E&Y on the tip of the spear. He's up at 4 a.m, working till about 9 p.m, calling all over the world on his team. And, he one time had a situation where he told somebody on his team, and I know the kid, I told him, he said, you always told me to be honest with people. I said, you're not pulling your share. You're not pulling your workload. I told you when you came to work on our team, we do audit offsite audits. It could be 80, 100-hour work weeks. Bring a sleeping bag and a pillow and something to eat, because we have to get this work done. If you want to make big money, you got to put the time in. And the kid went and he told him he was, I can't say on the air what he told him, but let's just imagine, okay? Sergeant Hartman from Full Metal Jacket, remember? You are, there you go. So,
hey, to make my numbers on my first sales job, I worked on Saturdays and Sunday when I was not getting paid a salary.
Yeah.
I was doing that to bring in the numbers.
That's right. And so what happened
credit
was
card, 1990.
the number 2 guy in the big accounting firm, a national top 4 firm, came into the office. He's looking out through the glass on that floor, and he sees him over there, and he goes, "They called me in." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Hey, see that kid out there you're talking about? We can get rid of him. He's a beep." I'm not going to say it. He goes, "Guys like you, there ain't a lot of you. You're an alpha male with a brain, and we need you." And he's risen and risen and risen. And I said, just stand your ground. That's what we got to do, Johnny. I'm not against people making money, but 31 plus years as a financial advisor, I say it all the time. We do wealth management, estate planning. Johnny, in 31 plus years, I have never, ever had a family with money give 8 or 10 or $20 million to a 19 or 20 or 21-year-old. They don't do it. They do age-banded trusts and incentive-based trusts. And the incentive-based trust is if you have to work. For every dollar you earn from your job, you get $1 from the trust, or $5 or whatever. If you don't work, the trust doesn't work. That's what just use common sense like that. That's what I'm saying, Johnny.
Fiduciaries.
Yeah. Fiduciary. And so, Johnny, that's what I'd do.
I go back, people forget probably now, since we've been a year and a half into name, image, and likeness, the first month before Bryce Young took one snap as the starting quarterback for Alabama, he was already pushing $1 million. Think about that. I mean, I still go back to SEC Media Days. It was held in Birmingham in 2021. And I still go back to Lane Kiffin at the podium speaking to the members of the media, and he was still just dumbfounded by that number. He could not wrap his arms around it, because he knew that as far as Ole Miss is concerned, he had nothing like that out there. And he realized that his job that was already tough enough competing in the SEC has just gotten a lot more tougher.
He was standing there with a knife in his hand at a gunfight, and he knew it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think, again, guys, nobody in the business world pays people like this. I've always been on commission. I eat what I kill. Frank, you are the same thing. Frank, the success you have, Johnny, the success you have, it didn't happen overnight. And I've always been told by my mother since I was born, and she still at 88 tells me this every day: anything in life worth having is worth fighting for, worth working for. Yeah. And that's why we have so much respect for these great Southern college football coaches, Bryant, Eddie Robinson, Jordan, Dooley. Think about it. Neal, you name them.
I have a thing too, and this goes back to our original things we were talking about, players not participating in these bowl games. I would not be totally shocked. Remember, the contracts with these corporations and these players has nothing to do about performance. However, there could be some language in these contracts where, for example, Bryce Young, if you don't play in the bowl game, if you're not hurt and you don't play in the bowl game, you may have to give all the money back, or a significant percentage of that money. You may be required to play in the bowl game. Even though Alabama can't win a national title, Bryce or Will, because we don't know, because we don't have, it's not public records exactly, what these contracts say. But if I'm a corporation and I'm giving Bryce money or Will money or a player from UCLA money, I'm expecting you to be on the football field, which then you also are representing me on the football field. If you're not there in a bowl game, you're not representing me.
Johnny,
and so we don't know.
We talked about that yesterday, 2 days ago on the show with Rob, and I told him, I've got buddies of mine that own businesses in Louisiana, and they've paid NIL money. And at the time, 2 of the 3 guys had opted out, and one of them was still playing. Well, that was Keishon Butte. Yesterday, he decided to opt out too. So now all three of them who've been paying money to these guys now don't have that representation. I think that's a breach of contract. You know,
absolutely,
Right.
and they need to sue these guys and wrap them up in court and let them realize what the real world is like. They want to be treated like adults. Let me tell you something.
Correct.
I've seen it firsthand. When you do a 5-year deal for a business and you come in and you were given money up front, right there, within a couple of days, it's in your checking account. Okay. You have a 5-year deal. If you walk off in 3 months or 6 months or 1 year, you owe that remaining balance.
Or even if the market changes. Sorry, Charlie.
Sorry. Yeah, it's called a contract, and it works, and it's 2 ways. So I'm with Johnny Ballpark Franks and you, Frank. Let you know what? Let's give these people. You know what's the best advice you're told is when someone wants something, give them what they want and see how they act. Let's start making these guys, these student athletes, because spare me the damn, Mr. Krabs and the world's smallest violin about these poor downtrodden athletes that just are taken advantage of by these big universities. Let me tell you something. These big universities that you're condemning invest billions of dollars. Their fans, their boosters, their supporters, some of them give so much money to you. If they ever go through a financial crisis, that's money they could have to get through it, but they've given it to their school. Let me tell you what, let's start making these student athletes, because they are given a platform. You know what the NCAA didn't do in the colleges? Justify the value of that scholarship. And if that's needed, apparently it is, because we've got a lot of dumb people out here. Okay. But you say to them, y'all want all this money? You are now employees of the university, and you will show up early. 6 o'clock in the morning means 5:30. Okay. You will not be late. You will not sleep in meetings. You will get fired. And if you don't show up for the bowl game and you're not showing effort, you're not going to get paid, and you've broken the contract. Johnny, let's start suing these people. I want to see these guys. Franz Beard, GatorbaitMedia.com, wrote a great column this summer, guys. He said, I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it. Franz, along with Frank Duffy, are 2 of the most interesting men I know. And Franz said, we need some of these big NIL deals to blow up and just become absolute, disasters.
Wait till one of them gets hauled into tax court because they were too dumb to not pay their taxes. Wait till
that's going to happen. That will happen. You can guarantee that's going to happen. Or, maybe they open up the door too, and you're going to have to start paying for your scholarship too, as far as, putting it on your tax. If you're an employee, that's a benefit. Correct. If you and I got some kind of benefit worth that kind of money, you would have to report it.
That might be the most expensive $10,000 NIL deal they ever got, because they're going to lose their $125,000 college education.
No, in my opinion, when you get NIL, you're off scholarship.
Let's just throw it here on the name, image. Here's the thing though, because we're so new into this, how many corporations who locked up deals with these athletes last year, in the first year of name, image, and likeness, thought that through to the point where they included that kind of language in the contract about participation in bowl games. They probably didn't.
Yeah. And I tell you what, I really think it needs to be in there. Billy Roberts made a lot of salient points yesterday, like you are, Johnny, like you are, Frank. And because we're all in the business world, man, I see it. I read these things. I read prospectuses. Okay. You better understand the big print in a contract giveth, the small print taketh away. It's that stuff at the bottom of the page that you better read. And I'm telling you, ignorance of the law. Remember the Andy Griffith episode when Andy and Helen Crump were fishing over at the lake, and they were fishing, and the game warden came up. He goes, well, how you doing today, sir? He goes, fine. He goes, well, can I see your fishing license? He goes, he reached in his pocket and he didn't have it. And he goes, well, I don't think this should mean anything, but I am the sheriff over here. He goes, good, then you should know the law completely. And he hauled him into jail. And next thing you know, he's got to call Barney and say, I need $25 over here at the courthouse. And Barney thinks he's getting married to Miss Helen. I mean, but ignorance of the law. Try this one. There's another one. I hunt anything that swims, flies, crawls, or runs. Try this one. Shoot over the limit of ducks or 5 mallards instead of 4, only 2 of which of those 4 can be hens. Try shooting 6 greenheads and explaining to the game warden, oh man, I didn't know the law. That doesn't matter.
You better hope there was enough bird shot in them when you threw them over your boat's side that they went right to the bottom.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And Johnny Ballpark Franks, you are very, very you're the tip of the spear, both of y'all, what you're saying today. Y'all are so hot, the screen's melting on your takes on this stuff. I love it.
And the issue is that it's ready, fire, aim.
Yep. Hold these thoughts. Mildred, my producer over here, has been tugging on me. The stopwatch again. It's time for a break. John Hartwell is texting right now. He's down on 30A on the beach right now. The athletic director angle in the next hour. He's loving this discussion because he knows it firsthand, having been an AD the last 8 years. Right back after this. Pow.
Hey everyone, my name is David Wisdom.
And I'm Shelby McNeil, and we're attorneys with Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short, your local Auburn law firm. Established in 1959, right in the heart of Auburn, Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short has grown in response to our clients' legal needs. We're a full-service law firm focusing on the legal issues our clients face.
We take pride in providing our clients with exceptional legal services, ongoing communication, and skilled representation. If you have any questions about our services, please give us a call or visit our website today.
All right, I'm going to talk sporty to you right now. I'll go back to Johnny Ballpark Franks, the UMP, Mondays at 5 p.m. down in Huntsville. You like sports talk, great interviews, nearly 14,000 interviews, more interviews and conversations with Heisman Trophy winners than anyone in the history of anyone who interviews Heisman Trophy winners. Johnny Ballpark Franks.
You know what the coolest thing about that? The coolest thing about that was that, either Christmas Day or Christmas Eve or, like 2 days before Christmas, getting Merry Christmas greetings from these former Heisman Trophy winners. And I'll never pretend that that's not a big deal to me, being a huge college football fan like I am. Just to have all these greats sending me Christmas messages and
pretty cool.
Individuals like the Italian Stallion, Johnny Musso, and all these Alabama and SEC greats. I'll never, ever, ever take that for granted.
No. And you know what? I mean, I'll tell you what. And I was at the Liberty Bowl yesterday. I'm going to tell y'all something. Harold Grader talks about, last year they had Woody Williams, the last living Congressional Medal of Honor winner from World War II. Won the medal as a Marine at Iwo Jima for service. So yesterday, Audrey and I are with my cousin and her husband and everybody at a big tailgate before the Liberty Bowl. And we these 2 women come by, are talking to us, and they visit with us. My wife and I are talking to them. And one of them, she was a Gold Star family. And, we were talking to her, and Audrey gave her one of these purses they had, and we were talking with them about the Liberty Bowl. The Gold Star Foundation invites all these Gold Star families to the Liberty Bowl.
Yeah,
that's another reason I love that game.
Yeah,
and I'm talking to her, and Audrey's brother Kurt was in the Marine Corps 25 years, from 81 to 06, and so he wasn't delivering flowers. He was doing what Marines do, and we're talking to her.
Things.
Yeah, and we're talking to this lady, and she has 3 children, and I'm talking to her, and all of a sudden I look down and I see her bracelet. Her husband was killed, KIA in Iraq in 2007. We're just talking about that, and it reminds you of what the Liberty Bowl is all about. Sure. And we talk about football. You think these guys, if you've got 2 days or 2 weeks left on your tour, you can't walk off the job over there. So don't ever let these dang suits up in New York, and the talking heads in the media try to tell you that these are battles and these are wars we're fighting. If seriously, if they're going to say that, then which is wrong.
I've always thought it's a bad analogy.
Yeah, it's a bad analogy, and I saw it yesterday. And so we remember, just like Johnny talking about, everybody wanted to be in line with Johnny Ballpark Frank's mother at the grocery store. They would kind of shift around. I feel bad for the other people, but look at her son. I mean, Johnny's cool as ice. So you think about that. Bottom line, guys, Sam Pittman, I mean, he let it be known. You know what? I'm not worried about people ain't here. These are the ones that.
It was a great interview. It was a great post-game interview. It was really fabulous. He's
real. He loves football. He loves it. And by the way, I got to ask you this, Johnny. Did you ever get a chance to interview or meet Eddie Robinson?
Oh, yes. In fact, my best story with Eddie Robinson, I've been very lucky. You know, Eddie Robinson, Bobby Bowden, Bear Bryant, Nick Saban. I mean, I've had opportunities to be around them. Some, obviously, Bobby Bowden I became really close to. But Eddie Robinson, you know, being the associate AD at Tennessee State, when he was at Grambling as a head coach and AD, my football coach, you know, this is when there was no limitations on practice. He kept his players out there until 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Well, you know, prior to the Grambling and Tennessee State game, they always would have the head coach of the school that they're playing that particular week. Well, because he couldn't make it, because he was on the football field practicing, I got to be a guest also on the Eddie Robinson show, which was heard nationwide. And so, you know, and then he thanked me, and I was when we would play in the Southern Heritage Classic, we played Grambling there one year, and I got to be, you know, part of the MC work as far as when we played Grambling. And so I had actually, believe it or not, had a chance to be around Coach Robinson a lot. And so down to earth. Now, if you were playing for him, you would get the fiery coaching, Coach Robinson, just like your Coach Bryant. But away from that environment, oh my gosh, they were so cool of guys to be around. I'm so very fortunate when we see videos in history of college football. We see these guys. I keep thinking to myself and pinching myself, this poor kid from Alabama has had the opportunity to be and spend time around these individuals.
Well, Frank, you know, being from Louisiana, and like said, Rick Neuheisel talked about being in Ruston a couple of years ago. He said, you know, Grambling's 10 minutes from Ruston?
Yeah.
He went over there and saw it. And as a kid, Johnny and Frank, I told you, I used to watch on Sunday mornings at 9 or 10 on Sunday mornings, the Eddie Robinson, the Grambling football show. And, you know, and
it would come on right after the Notre Dame highlights with Lindsey Nelson.
Yeah,
That's
you know,
3 downs. Notre Dame won.
Don't you love Lindsey Nelson? He go, Notre Dame at the 42-yard line. Yeah. Fitzgerald throws to O'Malley, back to O'Reilly, back to Lynch. And, I mean, but I just remember Eddie Robinson. You talk about a guy. You were around him, Frank. I never met him. I mean, but by the way, I was watching Saturdays in the South, 8-part series about the 150th anniversary of college football, and it was done by SEC Network, so it was Southern focused. And when Coach Bryant died, his funeral was January 28th, 1983. And they showed out there at the church as the pallbearers were bringing his casket down the steps to put it into the hearse to go to Elmwood Cemetery in Birmingham. And they showed all the people up there. And look, just right there by those pallbearers, there was Charlie Pell, there was Pat Dye, Eddie Robinson. I mean, he transcended everything. You know, we don't talk about politics. We talk about people, history, traditions, and heroes. Eddie Robinson, man, I got, like I said, at that deal, the Nick Saban Legacy Award dinner at the club in Birmingham back in May, I got to meet his family and his grandson. What class, just gracious people. I mean, they're why we love football. Eddie Robinson, you know, used to say, football teaches the lessons of life. You get knocked on your ass, you get back up. You quit getting back up, you're going to be down there forever. I mean, I love that, man. That guy, he had more wit and wisdom. And the other, one of the most influential people in my life besides God and my parents is Henry B. Used to say, it ain't the doing in life that's so bad, Rob Jr., it's the dreading. Let's get to work.
Yeah, that's true. No, you.
Common.
Yeah,
common
I never got the chance to meet Eddie Robinson personally, but I used to see and interact when he would come down for the Bayou Classic. Southern and Grambling would play in New Orleans every year, right?
Yep.
And it was fun. A lot of us would go down to the game because, frankly, the football was, toward the end, it was a little suspect, but the bands were incredible, right? The halftime was probably one of the best shows you could get in New Orleans, right at the Superdome. But we would go down. But what I was always impressed by was the comportment of the Grambling team. And I think that was directly related to the fatherly guidance that Eddie Robinson, gave to that team. They were, always immaculately dressed, coat and tie, always said the right thing. There were never any issues when the team would come into town. That wasn't always the case. A lot of teams would come in for the Sugar Bowl and, things would happen in the French Quarter. But the teams were always, I think, an example of what he was like as a fatherly influence on maybe a lot of kids that didn't have that in their personal lives.
Yeah.
And got the benefit from that. But look at all of, like you were talking, Everson Walls and, Doug Williams, all these players that went on to the pros and even players that just went on to have, families and working lives. They all said to a person what an effect Eddie Robinson had on them, like a Bear Bryant had on Alabama players, like a Charlie McClendon had on LSU players. My cousin played for Charlie Mack, and to this day talks about all the lessons that he learned in the 70s as a walk-on quarterback that ran the scout teams for some of those 76, 77, 78 teams. To this day, he still talks about him. And talk about a funeral when Charlie Mack passed away. I think at the time he was still running the Tangerine Bowl, which, in Florida at the time, which became the Citrus Bowl. He wound up being, had 1,000 people at his funeral because it was all his old players.
Yeah.
For our listeners, for the listeners right now listening who did not have the opportunity to meet Coach Robinson or Coach Bear Bryant or Coach Bobby Bowden, I will give you the best advice I could possibly ever give you. If you get the chance to talk and visit with anybody who played for those individuals, you will get to know and get to learn all about those coaches directly, because I guarantee you, and all the players that I have on that played for these individuals that we just mentioned, if they had played for them, those individuals still live in their hearts and still live in their daily lives, how they live their professional lives and their personal lives. Coach Bryant, Coach Bowden, Coach Robinson all live inside these individuals even today. That's the kind of impact these coaches had on their lives.
Yeah, Coach Jordan. Ralph Jr. is a friend of mine.
Jordan, good example, another one.
And that's, you talk about interesting. You think about the kind of men these guys were. Coach Bryant was on his way. He was coaching at Vanderbilt as an assistant with Red Sanders. And he was on his way to interview for the Arkansas football coaching job. And he had crossed over Memphis and was in Arkansas, probably somewhere between, Memphis and Forest City, when the news broke that Sunday morning, 7 December 1941, Pearl Harbor. He went back and turned around and enlisted in the Navy. Coach Jordan, when Shug Jordan was fighting Rommel in North Africa, landed at Sicily, was wounded at Omaha Beach, June 6, 1944, by a frag of a German 88 millimeter. And it blew a chunk of his shoulder out, blood everywhere. 4 days later, he wanders into a tent hospital, and they said, Major, I think he was a captain or a major. He was a combat engineer. He said, why didn't you get help? Then he goes, well, sir, I'm a combat engineer, and I was on that beachhead, and I figured those boys needed my help to get up that road, get a road built so we can get up there and beat those Germans.
If I don't open it up, we're all going to be here in the hospital.
Yeah, and you think about that. And then Shug went back after the war to Fort Lewis McChord, SeaTac, out there in, Seattle area. They were decommissioning his unit. His wife, Evelyn, drove across the country, and they asked for volunteers. They said, we need people to go. He went down to Okinawa and fought even more. And his wife, Evelyn, had to drive that brand new automobile across the country by herself. And as Ralph Jr. tells me every time we talk about it, my mother, till the day she died and in heaven still, has never forgiven the United States government. But you think Suge Jordan was going to get rattled because he was down, 9-3 in Knoxville at the beginning of the season in 1971? Pat Sullivan and those guys, he was smoking cigarettes on the sidelines, man. Suge was a badass. So was Coach Bryant. These were men. They were all 6'2", 6'3". You shook hands with those guys. You knew you were talking to a man.
That's right.
Pat Dye, Gene Stallings, like you say, Bobby Bowden, Eddie Robinson, General Nealon. Now, this is a good trivia question. Johnny.
Hey, Rob, I'm here at my stop. I've got to run. Great talking to you. Johnny Ballpark, great talking to you, pal. Have a Merry New Year.
Happy New Year, buddy.
Merry New Year. In this country, we say Happy New Year. Clarence Beek's famous quote. Johnny, but you think about these. General Nealon, he's the only football coach in history to go fight in 2 world wars, and after each one of them come back and win a national championship at Tennessee. Name me another coach that's got these coaches today. Their pressure is getting their agent to work a deal on the buyout.
When I was growing up as a kid collecting baseball cards, this was in the early 70s because I was, in 71, 72. In 72, I was 9 years old. But I collected baseball cards. I would look and read the stats on the back, and you would see, 1967 did not play military action. And you would see these players who actually represent their country. I mean, look at Bob Feller. Here's somebody, Ted Williams. You think about these great Hall of Famers in baseball, for example, who served our country in wars and lost some of their prime years that no telling what kind of stats they would have been able to accumulate if they had not participated and represented our country in the wars.
Yeah. Well, John Hartwell is about to join us down on the Gulf Coast. And, John grew up in Mobile. Everybody in his family was Auburn people. And he ended up going to the Citadel. And he said every time things would get tough in life, going through whatever, personal, team, schoolwork, whatever, his dad would always say, son, just be a bulldog. Those are the lessons that you learn. And if you're a kid today, Johnny, and things aren't going your way and you jump in the portal, what's going to happen the next time you hit something tough? What are we teaching these kids? As Eddie Robinson said, you're teaching them the lessons of life, but are we still doing that like we should?
I've in my adult world, I've faced several challenges at times, for whatever, whether getting hit in a car wreck or whatever. But it's the lessons I learned growing up, as a kid and in my teenage years, realizing life's not fair. It's those lessons that each and every day, I'm never scared about tomorrow. I don't worry about tomorrow. And it's because of the things that I've had to overcome early in my life that I use those things to help me get through the tough and challenging times as an adult.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you remember a famous play in Georgia Tech history, the $1 million tackle by Jake Rudolph on the goal line. It's a famous play. Coach Rudolph was the football coach for a long time at MUS, our big rival, CBHS's biggest rival. I used to go to MUS summer camp. One time there was a thunderstorm and I was scared. He just grabbed me and said, son, it's just rain. I'm like, okay, you didn't question Coach Rudolph. He's the $1 million tackle guy. Johnny, about run out of time. You are awesome having you on here.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
People, you bet, man. We love it. Tell people how they can follow you and keep up with you. And let's do it again next week. And Merry New Year. Happy New Year. Thank you.
First of all, I wish and hope everybody has the best year of their life. I really feel great about 2023. Best thing to do is just keep up with me on Twitter at BP Frank Show. If you're on Facebook, you can follow my page, Johnny Ballpark Franks. And my show is usually every Monday, this week, and then next week is Tuesday because of Christmas and New Year's. But every Monday is the main time, 5 to 7 Central Time in the afternoons. You can also listen worldwide online by going to umpsports.com. but it's on WUMP. I'm Sports 730 AM, 103.9 FM. But Happy New Year to everybody. Be safe if you're traveling somewhere. And I look forward to talking to everybody in the new year.
All right, absolutely, man. We'll be right back after this break with the AD Angle. Hour number 2 is next.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, proud to have ECS House Industries as a sponsor of Sidelines. Chad House, great folks over there. Chad is one of those dream CEOs you want to work for. Ask any of his employees. They're great. Check them out. Again, all agricultural farming practices. They make the aerators for catfish farms, which are all over the South, all over a lot of the country and around the world. They do fantastic work. Also, get out to Hewlett & Dunn on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. They're open. Man, they got so much cool stuff in there. Second largest Filson dealer in the South. They've got Old South. They've got, you name it, Wrangler. They've got unbelievable collection of duck heads. HewlettandDunn.com. You can order. Check them out on the website. They will deliver anywhere. All right, AD Angle. Matt Dean, great son of Iowa, Rhodes College. John Hartwell, down on the Gulf Coast, 30A as we like to call it. It's beautiful down there. LA, as they say, in the Florida Panhandle. LA stands for Lower Alabama. That's a tribute to Tate Vegas Davis, my pledge brother from Thomasville, Alabama, down there in southwest Alabama. Guys, I was at the Liberty Bowl last night. I was texting you last night, Matt and John. College football needed that boost. And God love Sam Pittman for saying what he said after the game. I'm not all concerned about who wasn't here. I'm concerned. I'm focusing on who was here. These guys wanted to play this game. They wanted to win this game, and this is a tribute to them. And hats off to Kansas, man. Golly, they brought a ton of people from the Sunflower State. Great people. I'm looking forward to going pheasant hunting out there in mid to late January. Every other state you can kill 3 roosters. In Kansas, you can kill 4 roosters a day. What's not to like about that, John and Matt? I mean, a 4-rooster state, but a unbelievable football game. That's why we love college football. We needed that. You can say all you want. Hey, if you're so narrow-minded as to say the only games that matter are the playoff games, well, you know what? That's your opinion. But I don't agree. And the overwhelming majority of the country, we love college football. We need it. We need these bowl games. And if the teams that are invited don't want to go, take a smaller school. I guarantee you they would pack it in. If we have to, we'll start with you, John, and then get Matt. Why not say if a big school doesn't sell their allotment of tickets, invite a smaller school and say, hey, look, man, would y'all like to come to the Gator Bowl or come to the Liberty Bowl or the Liberty Bowl? They get it right. They average 55 to 60,000 the last 22 years. There's not many bowls that can say that. But John Hartwell, Let's go. What do you think about
that? Yeah, that was a great game to watch. Glad you were able to be there in person. Steve Earhart does an outstanding job as the executive director of the Liberty Bowl, and what a showcase on television. I know some defensive enthusiasts around the country were probably scratching their head on it because there was not a whole lot of defense in that game, but it was really exciting. But you make a great point, Rob, and I hate to keep going back to our default that we talk about every week is NIL. But here's the thing. One thing that has gotten lost in this mad scramble for dollars, NIL, pay for play, whatever you want to call it, student athlete experience. And the student athlete experience in a bowl game is second to none. I mean, these bowl games, I'm telling you, it's like the restaurant business. If you aren't providing quality service, quality food, you're not going to stay in business. And it's the same thing with bowls. If you're not providing a quality experience and a quality venue, quality ancillary events to the bowl game, you're not going to stay in business. And, for the 3 or 4 high profile kids you may have on a team who are locks for the NFL, who may elect not to play, to risk getting injured, anything like that. The other 105 kids on that team are dying for that experience. And that is what makes bowl week, the game is the culmination of it, but the entire bowl week experience for these kids is outstanding. And that's not going to go away. And I think that's, again, hats off to all of the bowl executive directors and the people that make this happen. But, and these kids talk. If the kids from Arkansas and Kansas, they have high school friends who play at other schools, and they talk about their experience that week. Yeah. Other kids are like, man, I want to play in the Liberty Bowl, or I want to play in the Cotton Bowl, or I want to do this. Yeah. That's contagious, and I don't think that's going away.
Yeah. Matt Dean, I agree with John.
100%. John, spot on. And John, I like your background there, man. It looks like a great
I love
day.
It.
God bless America, and God bless the Florida Panhandle sunshine. 73 and sunny for the forecast today. L.A.
Lower Alabama.
That's what I'm talking about. But last night, ironically, I think the game was 38-13, and as you guys know, I have vested interest in watching Oregon football, so I switched over and watched Oregon North Carolina. And at halftime of the Oregon North Carolina game, we're starting double overtime, going on to eventually triple overtime, and I did catch Sam Pittman's press conference afterwards. And I thought it was really spot on. And I'll give you an example of how it relates to real life. Sam was basically saying, look, we should be spending our time with a lot of these high school coaches and visits, but because we're doing official visits on campus with portal people, we have to dedicate time to this now. And, I was talking to my son last night after their big win against North Carolina, and he's flying in for a few days to see us. He's like, well, Dad, I got to get back next Tuesday because we got more official portal visits. It's like it just doesn't stop because these staffs put so much energy on, the early signing date. And then you think they got a break during the bowl period. And it just rarely stops. And, I heard you talking earlier about an interesting game. It was Oregon State and Florida, and how Oregon State they really took it to Florida. And Florida had a lot of guys opt out. They didn't want to be there. December 17th, which really for their staff is a huge recruiting weekend, right? But Oregon State wanted to be there. Oregon State went in there and just literally tore them apart. And they ended up with 10 wins. A lot of people don't see them on the radar screen. Really good football coach in Jonathan Smith. Really good year. And that's what we've come down to now, guys. Besides high school recruiting, the portal recruiting may be more important to these coaches, because you're getting kids now with playing experience that can immediately impact your program. It's a vicious cycle. I know I think like we have this segment every week in the AD angle. But I will tell you, if you're not working the portal, you're also going to struggle to keep your job, perhaps. I mean, you look at Arkansas's roster last night, they had a lot of pieces that weren't there, and I give a lot of credit to them and Kansas for just putting on a show. And finally, I just think the Liberty Bowl, we've had a chance at Rhodes to back it for a long time. We've been a community partner and letting teams come over and practice and use our facilities. And it was tough this week with the weather because Arkansas happened to go use Memphis indoor facility. it's been a pretty neat experience to have. I remember back in the 90s when Donovan McNabb was on campus when Syracuse played in the Liberty Bowl.
Yeah.
And they left us 100 pairs of orange Nike cleats after the game. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
It's been a great experience for our staff to have those players, those student athletes, and those staffs on our campus. And what a game. Greatest bowl game yet.
That is a cool story. And Rhodes College, folks in Memphis, the most beautiful, as my dad, an architect, says, the most beautiful campus in any city in America. Honestly, it is gorgeous. And I'll say something too. John, having graduated from the Citadel, and Matt, we're all students of history. A football team meeting, you think about this. Hampton Sides, MUS graduate here in Memphis, wrote a book called Ghost Soldiers about the Bataan Death March. Turned it into a movie, came out August of 2005, called The Great Raid, about the Cabanatuan death camp in the Philippines in 1944 when MacArthur landed at Leyte. My good friend, Reverend Bob Watson down at Calvary Episcopal Church, was a combat engineer who landed on the beach with MacArthur. Their mission for the Rangers, there was a man named Colonel Henry Musey, little guy from Connecticut, and he was what he called a mule skinner. He had trained in New Guinea, pulling cannons up the sides of those mountains and those cannibal-infested jungles down there. It was unbelievable during World War II. Colonel Musey had a meeting. There were 126 men who had been selected in a Ranger battalion to go in on this most daring POW rescue mission in American history. 512, mostly Americans, a few Brits, were being held in the Cabanatuan death camp in the Philippines. At that point in World War II, the Japanese had issued an order to liquidate all prisoners. You know what that means. Colonel Musey had that meeting, described the mission. John, you can relate, having gone to the Citadel. My family is all VMI and West Point going back. Not me, but the real people in my family. I'm not worthy. But Colonel Musey had a meeting up on a board, a chalkboard, drew out the mission, what they were going to do. And he said, at this time, there are 126 of you in here. You volunteered for this mission. But if you have any reservations after what I've just described the mission to be, I'm going to turn my back. Those of you that don't want to participate, you can walk out. No hard feelings. Colonel Musey turned his back for 5 seconds, turned around, not one man left. Not one man left. That's what you want out of a team, people that are there together. I mean, look at John, the Citadel. Matt, your life as a coach, you've impacted hundreds of lives, both of y'all, thousands combined. Think about what you do. Did you ever tell a kid when you had a discussion with them that came into your office, Matt, or your office, John, and say, you know what, it's okay to quit because things are tough? I mean, just keep quitting until you find something you like. Eventually it'll work out. But I tell you what I'll do. I'll be sure to bring you a Happy Meal when you're on the corner of Poplar and White Station with a cardboard sign, because that's where you're going to end up. That's the way it is. Tough times don't last forever, but tough people do. John Hartwell, the McLaughlin Group. You're right. You're wrong.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago with NIL. It's, quitting. And I can remember years ago, my dad saying this on a regular basis, that, son, quitting is a pattern. If you do it early in life, it continues. And the transfer portal, it has created a situation where, hey, if the stars on the line, exactly right for me, and it's not about we, it's about me. If the stars on the line correctly, I'm going to quit and go somewhere else where I'm hoping they are. And in a lot of cases, and I think you're going to see more data coming out about this, you have student athletes who go in the transfer portal, leave one institution, go to, leave institution A, go to institution B. And oftentimes they don't find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow there either. And they're going to institution C or D. And it is not a good pattern. And again, it's something that it's not real life. I mean, the stars are not going to be aligned on a regular basis in real life.
Yeah. John, I was talking about something before you came on earlier in the show. It was an article that was sent to me by one of my friends who's an accountant, and it said 17% of accountants have walked off the job in the last 2 years because the hours are too long and too tough, and they're looking at other things and whatever. Your background is, public accounting with E&Y. My nephew Ben worked for Deloitte 4 years before he went to law school at Memphis. My niece's husband, Cameron, over in Atlanta, KPMG, okay, master's in accounting. It's very important. And Matt, again, you talk about the student athletes that you're dealing with at Rhodes, okay? Academically, brutal. John, you had the military, the academics, and the athletics at the Citadel. Matt, what are your typical conversations like when you have a student athlete come to you and talk about, I want to go to medical school, I want to be a doctor, but I'm having to do this and do that? Have you ever once told them, just quit, versus saying, suck it up, tie another knot in the rope, and God bless America, find excuses to win?
Quite the contrary. I've always sold these 4 years for these student athletes from 18 to 22 are the best 4 years of your lives. You may not see it because you're kind of trapped in the experience right now, but trust me, I'm a little older than you. And I just encourage kids to fight through it. Don't hit the send button. Come see me back tomorrow. Don't make a rash decision. I heard an interesting thing about going back to the portal on the NIL podcast yesterday. I was listening to Ryan Clark, who's a former LSU Tiger. He was a great football player, Super Bowl champion, and he's now an analyst for football on ESPN. And they were doing a group of him. I think Fred Taylor was on there, a former running back. And guys are so concerned about being third on the depth chart that they're going to the portal. Now they're at number 3,000. Now, are there examples of it working out for people for different reasons? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's a very small percentage. And getting back to your initial question, for me, you got to get through those first couple years. And the first semester of college is always the toughest. When I was coaching, the transition from leaving mom and dad, from leaving your good friends, and hopefully athletics is giving you the chance to build a new friend group instantly. Usually that happens. Usually the reason we have higher retention rates in athletics is because of the team we built, with the 15 individuals we're coaching, right?
Yep. Yes.
Well, what NIL has created, John said it earlier, it's not we, it's me. And you can't combat that when you're talking about, hey, I can go here and get this type of deal. Well, are you sure? Because I can give you a lot of examples off the air of people that have left places, promised one thing, and it didn't work out.
Yeah. Well, we're about to go to a break, and we're going to come back and go back to John. You look at, think about anything. You go to basic training, Parris Island, Marine Corps. You got 8 weeks of basic, 5 of AIT. And then you get a week off, whatever. Then you go wherever they send you. But my God, that first 3 weeks, everybody I know that's ever been to Parris Island, like my brother-in-law, Kurt, 25 years in there, they'll tell you wanted to quit every minute of every day. John, I'm sure that first 36, 48 hours at the Citadel was just a lot of fun. And the great irony of it all, at Fort Benning Basic Training, home of the infantry, Columbus, Georgia, Sand Hill Reception Station. That's what they call it. Like they're going to have tea and appetizers when you get there. It doesn't work that way. That diesel bus comes around the corner and those brakes go. That guy puts that Smokey the Bear hat on, has a big box with everybody's folder in it, gets on there. You know the rest of the story, because let's just say the decorum prohibits me repeating what is said, but I can assure you it is not. Welcome to Fort Benning. We hope you're doing well. Hope you had a nice flight. Come on. Yeah, right. We'll be right. Can't keep a straight face on that one. We'll be right back with the AD angle after this quick message from Mildred at the beach.
Hey, y'all. It's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn. Just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection. And they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Oh, man. Speaking of Fort Benning, I just got a text from my friend Dave Cody out in Bellingham, Washington. Used to be sports anchor down in Austin, Texas for the last 36 years. And he said, Fort Benning, huh? He said, had base privileges, and the PBR on tap is pretty good. Remember that great old country song, White Sox and Pabst Blue Ribbon beer? Wow, PBR. Now, I'm a Ham's beer guy. I've even got a lit up neon Ham's beer sign over at the Cherry Farm in the Sunset Lounge. But let's get in here to the Ham's beer. You think about those commercials. What would the insurance and the attorneys say today? You had a guy drinking a cold, old steel can. It wasn't aluminum. Drinking out of a steel can of Ham's beer, driving in an open air Willis Jeep with a grizzly bear licking him on the face. I mean, you think the cops wouldn't pull you over and go, wait, what's going on here? But that's Ham's beer. Beer you've been looking for since 1865. Love to have him as a sponsor if they're listening. But anyway, I digress. John Hartwell, I'm going to do this back and forth with you and Matt, so get ready. As AD, you have that budget, okay? What you made at the end of the year. Does the fiscal year, tell me when a fiscal year typically is. I want fans, because I'm getting text from someone right now, and this is a text from Jethro Tull in Immokalee, Florida. Jethro Tull says, I want to know how much universities really make. Because all we ever hear is how the athletes are used and the universities make billions. How much the universities really make? And don't they invest a lot of that money or most of it back into facilities and student athletes and the improvements of everything and every day of their lives? So that's from Jethro Tull, Immokalee, Florida. Man, in the jungle, John.
Yeah, so most universities, not all, but most universities operate on a fiscal year that ends June 30th. So July 1 to June 30th.
Okay.
That pretty much mirrors the academic year. And, again, as we talked briefly about last week, there may be 10, 12, 15 institutions out there that actually end in the black. And I'm speaking in financial terms, but end up with more revenues than they do expenditures. And really, I think I may have mentioned this as well. There's really no incentive to end up, you can't take a $10 million surplus and go cash it in for 3 more wins in football or 5 more wins in basketball. Yeah. You are operating under the premise, where can we invest that has the most impact, to help us be successful. And, you spell success in college athletics, WIN. I mean, that's what, unfortunately, coaches aren't graded on how many Rhodes Scholars they have, how many 3.0 kids they have. All of that is great. And we want that. For a few people still out there, the term student athlete still does apply. But what at the end of the day, and the higher the level you go, and you start at the very top of Power 5 and work down, and coaches are judged on wins and losses, and so there really is no incentive to say, oh well, gosh, we've got this huge surplus this year, let's do this. Now, for the schools that do end up with a surplus, you see Florida and Alabama and Ohio State and some other schools who are in that upper echelon from a financial standpoint. who do transfer funds to the library or make a gift, across campus and things like that. And obviously that builds goodwill, but the vast majority are struggling to finish either break even or one more dollar in revenues than they have in expenditures for the fiscal year.
Yeah. And so I guess what I'm getting at is, Matt and John, student athletes, maybe it would be kind of cool to hear them come out publicly after a big win, or instead of having a little bitch fest and a pout face spreading the dreary wearies all over the place, and come out and say, I just want to thank Utah State University. I want to thank Rhodes College. I want to thank the University of Memphis for providing me this last 4 years of a scholarship, the boosters, the people that make this possible, because this university's been here for 150, 200 years, whatever. And thank you so much, because you've been there for me every time I've needed anything these last 4 or 5 years. And I want to thank my athletic director and the staff, the trainers, director of equipment operations, a guy like Dana Marquez at Auburn, who has 34 people working for him with 21 sports. And I know what Dana does. Dana had heart surgery last year, was right back at work. I mean, you can't find people like this very often. So, and thank Matt, thank John for what y'all do, what you sacrifice. One of my buddies, I'm not going to name him, recruits like crazy at a major football program, told me, when February wraps up, I'm ready to spend time with my own family, because I've been spending time with everybody else's kids. I want to get back around my own family. So I think maybe, am I on to something, Matt? Like, hey, I just wanted to come by and say thank you. Like, when I go out to eat and I have a good meal, which is usually, I like to go just say thank you so much. This is awesome, incredible. Talk to everybody. I mean, the bus boys, the people cleaning up the kitchen, tell them thank you. Always people matter, Matt.
Rob, the one thing I'll say about that is, and a lot of times the media doesn't see this side of the student-athlete-coach relationship, but there are a lot of conversations like you're talking about that happens in a coach's office after a big win, after a tough loss, even after a great career. I'll tell you some things that go on even in our side of it is, we're pretty much, we don't fly much, but we're commercial if we do. But gosh, our bus driver is a part of our team, and there's certain relationships that go on behind the scenes that the viewing public do not see. That part of the reason coaches do this thing for a long period of time is just the satisfaction they get out of the relationships with those student athletes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, at my level, it's not always going to be in an extra zero on that contract, right? Yeah. So it's about the relationships. It's about writing that letter of recommendation for a student athlete in the med school or law school or whatever, and then coming back 10 years ago at homecoming saying, Coach, I couldn't have done it without you. Those things, quite frankly, for a lot of us in the industry, me in particular, are why we do it. And it means so much to us. And it's more than the money. It's all the relationships. But you don't see that. I promise you, as cold as Saban is sometimes with that Coke up at the podium stand, talking about the rap.
Which he never drinks, by the way.
Which he never drinks because he looks so good. But he's got those kids. They drink it for him. They drink his Kool-Aid. They love the man. Otherwise, they wouldn't play so doggone hard.
Yeah. And go ahead, John.
I was going to say, Matt, just to add there, and you made a great point about kids coming back later. There are a lot of things different about kids today than maybe when we were all in school. But one thing that's not different is when we were 18 to 22, 23 years old, we had all the answers too. Right. And maybe we're not as appreciative as we should be. The most meaningful things, and the longer you're in this business, the more you get this, is when kids come back, 5, 10, 15 years after graduating or finishing their eligibility and say, hey, you know what, John or Matt or Rob, you know what, thank you for what you did for me. I may have been a smart ass know-it-all and, had all the answers, but I really, and looking back now, really appreciate all you did. And that's the thing. I mean, because you were dealing with highly successful, high-level athletes and students who, make a tough transition from high school to college, being a big fish in a small pond, to being just one of many talented kids on a roster who, you know, at some point the light clicks on and says, hey, I need to take advantages of these opportunities that I have. And those are the one, you know, that's not everybody. And again, we categorize some of these kids, you know, the vast majority of student athletes that I have dealt with have had a sense of appreciation for the opportunity, but you're always going to have kids who, hey, with their hand out, what's the next thing you're going to give me? And again, you've got to stay the course in the opportunities and the education you provide them. I think one of the big keys here, when sometimes people get in a narrow silo when they hear about education, it's not just what you learn in the classroom. In fact, that's only a portion of it. But the lessons you learn on the practice field, the lessons you learn on the game in the stadium, the lessons you learn in your life, in your social life as a student athlete, you know, you learn lessons that carry for a lifetime there. And that's all part of the education process.
Yeah. And I think about the greatest lesson ever. When I was in school at Auburn, I had a routine. My mother, I'd go to Crystal on Magnolia, get the custom country breakfast, 2 eggs, sunny side up with grits and toast, orange juice and milk, walk to my class, take my test, but I'd take the steps. Haley Center, tallest building on Auburn's campus, 8 stories. And one time I wanted to take the elevator. My mom was saying, you know, do yourself a favor. Take the stairs. You'll learn about that climb to the top. If you take the elevator, you're just punching a button and getting the wrong idea of how you make it in life. She goes, take the stairs, boy. Listen to me. and what we're doing, we're trying to microwave people now to the top. You know, you can't say you swim 2 miles 5 days a week if you're only swimming 200 yards. I mean, you can, but your body knows you're not. And I'm not saying that student athletes are not appreciative, but that narrative that so much of the national media has grabbed hold of is that the athletes are these victims. You know, we love the victim mentality over here. That's your choice to be a victim if you want to be a victim. Go have your own pity party on your time and your dime, not mine. And John and Matt and teachers. I had a brother, Joel McGraw, Christian Brothers High School, LaSallian Brothers. One time during summer school, I was in summer school, believe it or not. The air conditioning went out at CBHS at the school. And I raised my hand in class and I said, Brother Joel, it's hot in here. The air conditioning's not working. And he just looked at me and he said, are you through, Mr. Browne? I said, yes, sir. And he goes, it is better to suffer. May we continue? I mean, what was the message there? So what? It's hot for everybody. So Matt and John, both of y'all coaches, athletic. Do people call y'all coach still when they see you? I bet they do. They always will, even if you coached them when they were 12 or 19, don't they?
It's kind of like my version of being called a doctor is coach. You know,
yeah, they absolutely.
It's a respect thing. And I was going to also comment, one of the things that people don't realize too is how much in the locker room or outside of the game day experience that really bonds this family of student athletes and a team together. And I promise you, on every really good team, you have really good seniors or junior student athletes that are leading that team. It's not just a coach. Yeah. It's someone else that can say, hey, coach, can I say something in the locker room? And they are an extension of that staff. And that's why you see when teams have great talent, and we talked about this a little bit back in the day when Calipari started these one-and-done teams that were incredibly talented, and then the kids would leave. I'm talking about probably 10, 15 years ago. Well, what happens in those situations, you really don't have any empowerment in the upper classes. And people were always wondering, well, why are these teams never winning championships? Because 22-year-olds still can kick the butt of talented 18-year-olds. That's why. And leadership does matter within that locker room. And I think it's no different if you're an athletic director. It's how you manage your coaches. And there's always a factor amongst coaches. Everybody thinks that football gets everything. And we know they're probably right for the most part. But, you know, you have to manage every head coach. You have to also manage the expectations of their families and their student athletes. You know, what John has done at the highest level of being, you know, an AD at multiple places, it's not tough when you have to be that buy-in game sometimes and get that check so you can support some of your programs because you're not funded at the level or have the fundraising you need to provide those student athletes with the best experience. So, it's great when it all comes together and you win a 55-53 game like Arkansas did last night.
Yeah.
But then when you hear Sam Pittman, the reality is talking in that locker room about how it was to get to this point, he had to have some seniors or some juniors step up and say, guys, we're going to win this doggone football game. We're going to stay here. We're 6-6. The Liberty Bowl matters, and let's represent our institution. And that's what every good team has, is leadership inside that locker room.
John?
Yeah, Matt, you make a great point. And, you talk about player leadership, and coaches can get their points across in a variety of ways as much as they want to. But if you don't have player accountability to each other and player leadership, there's something that's missing in that chemistry factor. And time after time, you see great chemistry with good talent win out over great talent. It's just, and it's that accountability. And, you look at these teams and you may not see it on the television or in person, but somewhere in there you have a guy or a handful of guys or young ladies on your women's teams who will literally, not in a violent way, but grab the jersey of a teammate and say, come on, we're in this together. Quit sulking, quit worrying about you and worry about us, worry about the team. And that accountability develops great chemistry. And it's, that's something that can't be overcome if you don't have it.
Yeah. And you look at around, you're down 9-3 with 1 minute and 43 seconds left, and you're at your own 9-yard line. Your quarterback goes out there. If he's hanging his head and, just is a defeated man, what's going to happen to the rest of that huddle? I remember reading this book about Pat Dye, and he said, I never allowed my quarterbacks to have a negative thought enter their mind. He goes, that's why I stood in the backfield with the quarterbacks and the offensive players at practice. That's what I was doing, was just watching those guys, watch their eyes. Where we're going with this? Because, I love the sticker. It's a T-shirt. I don't need your attitude. I've got my own. And when you get around people that are negative, it is so easy to wake up in the morning if it's cold and rainy and just roll back in bed and hit the snooze button. I cannot think of a more unproductive time of the day than laying on your back, hitting the snooze button, and not getting up. Because, life's a choice. And the same thing with sports. Y'all are both right, because y'all have talked and mentored thousands of student athletes. And majority of them are good. What I'm saying is the narrative, it needs to be out front from the opposition saying, look, the universities, listen, if I'm a university, and y'all both know this, I'd start a campaign to say, this is what we provide these student athletes. And NIL, hey, that's great. I mean, but it shouldn't define who you are. Your exploits on the field and how you treat people should. Right back after this.
Hey everyone, my name is David Wisdom.
And I'm Shelby McNeil, and we're attorneys with Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short, your local Auburn law firm. Established in 1959 right in the heart of Auburn, Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short has grown in response to our clients' legal needs. We're a full-service law firm focusing on the legal issues our clients face.
We take pride in providing our clients with exceptional legal services, ongoing communication, and skilled representation. If you have any questions about our services, please give us a call or visit our website today.
Guys, want to get back now and talk. Audrey says, man, give the NIL a break. You're just tearing these guys up, but I got to say this. We have talked about it, but also want to talk about the bowl games. SEC's not doing really well in the bowl games. John, Ole Miss last night. I know Jackson Dart got injured in the game. Last year, Matt Corral got hurt. But do you get the sense that a lot of these teams just don't care, don't want to be there because if you're a fan, it is not cheap to drive or fly out to Houston or to the Rose Bowl or to the Gator Bowl. The tickets aren't free. Hotels aren't free. The food isn't free. Missing work, all the wear and tear. As an accountant, John, you understand this. I'm going to put it in your nomenclature. The depreciation on your car. Trust me, my wife last night at the football game goes, this is the last one of the year. I can't take anymore. I got to have a break. And I was going, just a little bit longer. Then it went to overtime. I thought she was going to punch me. It was getting pretty bad. But your thoughts on that? Because, again, it should matter. But the SEC's getting Texas Tech. Big 12 plays some good football.
Yeah, they do. One of the things about that game last night, and after watching, the Arkansas-Kansas game, and then the Oregon game, which, hey, Matt, congratulations to your son and to Coach Lanning and that entire staff. And you know what? They did a great job of keeping that thing high drama. The bank shot off of the goal post to take the lead there with the extra point. That was made for TV. But congratulations to them. But yeah, then with Ole Miss and Texas Tech, here's the analogy I'll use, and Matt may light up to this. I'll do a little bit of a transition without diving totally in. I'm going to use a basketball analogy. And, a lot of these SEC teams, their goal at the beginning of the year is obviously to compete for an SEC championship, but their goal is also to play in a New Year's Six Bowl. Right. And all of a sudden, if they fall short of that, the coaching staff has to do a great job of motivation to get kids ready to play. Again, we talked about bowl experience earlier. That's all great, but you still got to go play the game. And I equate it a lot to basketball teams who fall short during the regular season, end up in the NIT as opposed to the NCAA tournament. And, a lot of people call NIT not in tournament. That is, so it's hard. You often see a lot of first round upsets in the NIT, even on teams' home court, where the bigger school often is the host and a smaller school comes in and they're elated to be in the NIT, whereas the host school is like, gosh, we missed the NCAA tournament. I think that's what happens a lot in bowl games, and it's just hard when you fall short of your goals for the season, not to play in the New Year's Six game, not to play in the CFP game, and you're playing in what is still a great bowl. I shouldn't say a lesser bowl, but perception-wise, to some of these teams, it's a lesser bowl, so it's hard to get those kids motivated.
Yeah, Matt. I mean, along those lines, SEC is 1-3 in bowl games right now. And they're keeping score. It sets the tone for the coming year. What would you say maybe differently than what Matt said, or do you agree with him? Because I do.
Well, John, that's the best analogy with the NIT and basketball with the bowl games I've ever heard. That's 100% spot on. Now with Ole Miss, I'm going to ask both of you this question. I may annoy some people with this, but I thought Ole Miss's schedule was front loaded this year.
Yeah,
they got off to a terrific start. Down the stretch, they just didn't impress me that much. I'll be honest with you. They lost so much from last year's great team. It finally caught up with them. And, Texas Tech wanted to be there last night. And by the time Ole Miss had figured out they were in a dogfight, it was just too late. And then I believe the Red Raiders head coach, I think it's could be Joey McGuire, but I think he just got a 6-year extension maybe. And you could tell those kids, they were playing. It meant something to them. They were in the first round of NIT. They wanted to get to Madison Square Garden last night, and they certainly did. It was interesting for Oregon. Another thing that people don't talk about much, but you look at the Arkansas game, you think Barry Odom not being there hurt him? I mean, we talk about the players, but I mean, you lose your defensive coordinator, takes a head coaching job. Oregon lost their offensive coordinator at Arizona State, Dillingham. It makes a difference, too, when your play caller on both sides of the ball that kids have been relying on for 12 games is not there either. So the motivation for the SEC so far, I mean, Florida was a great example. I mean, they didn't want to be there at all to play Oregon State, and they just got thumped. and they lost their quarterback. I'll tell you a neat thing happened in the Oregon game last night. I was watching the game, and they had some shots at the sideline. Oregon's top draft choice, Christian Gonzalez, declared to go pro, right? Opted out of the bowl game. He's a transfer from Colorado, came to Oregon, had a terrific year. I mean, a lot of mock drafts have Christian in top 15. Well, he was on the sideline wearing his jersey, supporting his teammates. I thought that was the coolest thing. And of course, in Twitter world last night, he got criticized for being at the game but not playing in the game. I'm like, whoa. He was still there supporting his teammates. I get he didn't play because there's a lot of money on the line for the young man, but he's part of that family. He's part of the reason they're there. And for him to be there supporting that team, I have no problems with that whatsoever. Now, other fans get a little upset when they see him there not playing, but there's so many different motives going on at the same time, guys. It's a different story for every institution.
Yeah, along that line, John, you probably know Troy Calhoun, head football coach at Air Force, don't you?
Yeah, sure do.
Yeah, I mean, and our friend Tim Horton is out there now coaching running backs, and I love Tim and his father Harold Horton. Yeah. Think about that. In the last 41 years, Air Force has had 2 coaches, 2, and you think about the pride those guys have. Pain is temporary. Pride is forever. That's not my slogan. It's on a T-shirt the Marine Corps has. If you do a bunch of pull-ups at the Ducks Unlimited Outdoors Festival, you can get one. You got to do 20. So I'm just saying that, Matt, this is great stuff. You look at guys that play in these bowl games. I mean, to me, it's just I can't grasp it. Ever not having the back of your teammates, your brothers who you've fought and sweated with and worked out together. Bo Jackson stayed all 4 years of college. Earl Campbell stayed all 4 years of college. Peyton Manning, I know, the Mannings have money. I don't want to hear that. He still could have gotten hurt. And one thing I want to ask you this, John, as an athletic director, you understand this. You have a kid from a male or female athlete, okay, from a very wealthy family, and they get a scholarship, and people will say, well, that family should just pay for it. But it's about that kid getting it on their own, and it means a lot to them, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. I mean, and again, I think this goes back to character, and oftentimes character is an overlooked quality in recruiting. Work ethic, all of those things. I think it's really important not to just look at the stats that the kid has, but look at their background, look at their work ethic, look at their family. And I think that really is a good projector of, how hard a student athlete is going to work in school, what their upbringing has been. And it really, people can say, oh, well, they come from a country club set. They're not going to, they don't want it as much as maybe a first-gen college student. But that's not necessarily true. That's where you have to do some background work. And I'll say this, in a losing effort last night, Jackson Dart played his tail off. He got beat up time after time, got off the ground. He never wanted to go out of the game, and I give him a ton of credit in that. You look at that game, and I would venture to say he may have had some of his teammates who weren't as engaged in that game, and it's. I'll be interested the next time you have Yancey Porter on, because it's going to be an interesting offseason for the Ole Miss Rebels. I obviously still keep up with a lot of people, follow a lot of social media. Yeah. And there's a lot of correlations this morning equating Lane Kiffin's contract kind of to that of Jimbo Fisher's. And hey, what should our expectations be if we're paying $9 million a year for a coach? So that's going to be an interesting situation to follow.
Yeah, and Matt, I'd love it if we could have Tyler on the show. Your son, I love to just talk to him about, having been in the SEC 4 years with Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M and now at Oregon. What are the differences? Are they that big, that wide? But what I see is when you go to these games, bowl games or these intersectional matchups, football matters all over the country. In the South, it is borderline, religious. It means more because it's so personal, but it's because we're all on top of each other, and we're all, Audrey's evolved for life. Mallory's an Alabama grad. Hallie Wilson and Max are all Auburn. My parents are Auburn. I'm Auburn. But God, we're all there, and in the games, we all travel so well. That's what makes it so much fun. But if Tyler can be on with us, we'd love to have him on the show. I think it'd be fun.
Well, as much influence as I'd like to say I have, I will try to see if I can talk to my son about doing that. But you raise a really good point, John, too, with the expectations it looks like now, and Lane deserves everything he's getting contractually because he's done a terrific job there. And I just think the reason I mentioned earlier about last night was, if Matt Corral doesn't get hurt early in that football game last year in the Sugar Bowl, I think they'd take care of business. And they were a team all the way up until the last week of the season that was in the CFP, conversation last year. And I think Lane manages the portal as well as anyone in the country. They're going to recruit some high-level players there. And his offensive system, let's be honest, is one of the best in the country. Kids want to come play for him. I think the challenge in the SEC now, you got Hugh Freeze back at Auburn. You've already got the best college football conference in America every year. And, looking at the West, it's really interesting. I think Jimbo's got a lot of pressure this coming year. You didn't go to a bowl game this year because you're 5-7. 2 years ago, you opted out for COVID reasons, and you've lost some integral pieces of your staff. People don't realize how good a job Mike Elko did at Duke. He was a coordinator at Texas and A&M for a long time under Fisher, and Duke had a great showing in the bowl game against UCF yesterday. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on him to win 9-10 games next year, and I'm not sure he's going to do it.
Yeah, Duke went 9-4.
Yeah,
and ACC. Look, if Miami keeps recruiting guys the way they're recruiting right now, what are they, third or fourth in the rankings? They're going to be. But Mario Cristobal didn't forget how to coach.
No,
and that's it. But I think that when I look at this big picture of college athletics, and I see what is going on out here with with these contracts, I tell you what, it's scary what we're paying these coaches. And I know that, and John Hartwell, I want to ask John this question, or you, Matt. He's got a couple of minutes. When they come in and talk to you about this massive contract as an AD, and you've got your biggest booster or two of your biggest boosters demanding that you do this, the university president talking to you, you really don't have a choice. And let me say this, go out and help people with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Give to give, don't give to get, because most often we're going to see the face of Christ in the least among us. And we live in the greatest country in the history of the world, people. You better learn to fight. You can make a living with your hands, but you can make millions with your mind. Get your education, whether it's in college or hard work, hard knocks, it doesn't matter. But we've unfortunately about out of time. But real quick, 15-second answer, Matt. How do you handle when your biggest boosters, Foghorn Leghorn, I see you're going to sign this here, coach. Yes, sir, to a 10-year deal for $150 million. What do you do?
Well, it's probably harder for John than it is me because I don't have those big contracts with my coaching salary.
But I'm just saying.
But at the end of the day, you got to stand up for your belief system. You got to stand up for your institution. You got to do the right thing. And if you feel like that's a good move for your institution, then you listen to the booster without question. If it's one that's really tricky, you're going to have some meet in the middle somewhere, I think.
Yeah. John?
I'm going to have an answer that some people may disagree with, but I think a 10-year contract for anybody is foolish. There's a lot of change that can happen in 10 years. I really think a 5-year contract is about as long as you go. Nobody has a crystal ball to see what's going to happen that far out. And I just think, a 10-year contract is crazy. Again, you go back to it's the domino theory. As long as somebody continues to pay to make somebody the highest paid coach, at some point it's going to go to 12 million, 13 million a year. the domino effect is going to happen. And until everybody across the board has a lower base salary and incentivized contracts, this arms race in terms of coaches' contracts is going to continue.
Yeah, because I know in the private sector, what I get, I mean, you eat what you kill. There's no base. If you don't work, you get nothing. And all you'll get if you sit on your butt and don't try is fired. I mean, it's pretty simple. Hard work works. I mean, and again, college athletics, 4 or 5 year contract is plenty. Why didn't everybody learn from Charlie Weiss? Remember, he came to Notre Dame and he had Brady Quinn at quarterback. He'd had Tom Brady at New England with Bill Belichick. Well, sure, it's easy to sail the boat when the wind's at your back. Try doing it uphill with the wind in your face. And the 10-year deal with Charlie Weiss was an embarrassment. But again, the Jimbo Fisher deal. I don't know Jimbo from Adam's house cat, but I know one thing. He looks like he's been at Mardi Gras for 3 or 4 days on a wild ass, trip. Every time I see him on a press conference or something, and now he is madder than a wet hen about NIL. He goes, it's just pay for play. It's all that. You know what I heard, guys? Tell me if I'm wrong. That $25 million NIL thing we heard about with that recruiting class, that was over 5 years, and it wasn't all up front. And I think a lot of those guys got the A&M and thought they were going to get all this money up front, and they didn't. And so 25 or 30 of them are in the portal. That's pay attention, people. But I like what both of y'all said. Hey, we've run out of time, man. Let's do this again next week. The AD angle, Matt Dean, Rhodes College, John Hartwell, most recently AD at Utah State. Prior to that, Troy, deputy AD at Ole Miss for a decade, Citadel graduate, UMS in Mobile. 2 great Americans. Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow.